If your adult child needs a safe space to avoid offensive words, you failed as a fucking parent. If anything in my seminar offends you, blame your parents for raising a pussy.
What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash the like button, show a little love, subscribe. I make these videos for you guys. They are not for me. All right, so my buddy drops off this little 1200 watt Pulsar generator. These are kind of all over the place. There's slight variations of them. You got the Harbor Freight version. I mean, there's just a bunch of these little, 1200 watt peak generators. They're mostly like 800 to 900 watt, but they peak out at 1200 watt, and they can run like 1000 watt constant. So a lot of people buy these. I'm not a huge fan myself because they're little two-stroke motors, and two-stroke oil is very expensive right now. So you're better off just buying a four-stroke, in my opinion, but whatever. This thing's basically brand new. It's got some sticker shaving, but I mean, overall, it's pretty much brand new. Now, he hit me up and said, hey man, anytime they turn the gas on, they bought it, never got used. They did put gas in it originally, and then it sat. Well, anytime you let any kind of carburetor sit for any period of time, normally things get gummed up. So when he told me that he turned the fuel on here, it started leaking out of the carburetor and out of the air intake. Well, right off the bat, that tells me one major thing going on here is that the float is sticking. And it's just allowing constant fuel to keep filling up. So I already know that we're going to end up pulling this apart and cleaning the carburetor, and hopefully the carburetor is not so trash that it still works again. If it doesn't work, then we're going to have to order a carburetor and put it on there. But I want to show you how to take this apart. So on this version of the Pulsar, there's 4 screws, a little faceplate comes off right here, and then you move that aside. And then you've got these 2 screws these 2 nuts right here that are a 10. We're going to take those off together. That leads to the carburetor. As you can see, the butterfly or the choke is right here. We're going to take those off. I'm going to set those aside. Once I get that done, I'm going to put those over there. There's actually, on this version, once again, there's 4 screws here, and then this faceplate pops off, and behind that, there's another 10 right here. After you take this off, I believe this whole front plastic piece should come off of there. So let's see if I'm correct about that. There we go. Little bolt just fell out. A little spacer in there. We'll have to get that back in when I'm done. Let's get this off of here if we can. Pop that off. Come on off of there. Oh, come on, dude. There we go. Jeez. Oh, yeah. It's definitely been gas and oil getting out of there. Let's see if we can get this off of here carefully. See that this is going to take a little bit of work because this one's like pushed on there. Threaded almost. There we go. Okay. And then we'll move the little choke button out of the way. That gives me access to the carburetor here. So, by the way, that little spacer just goes right there, guys. And we'll put that back in when I'm done. But as of right now, we just need access to this carburetor without this thing being in the way. So, all right. Well, I think a good place to start is see if we can actually just strip this thing down without actually having to remove the carburetor. It looks like it's just got a float bowl on there. So what I'm going to do is see if we can just lean this back. Let me grab a wrench. I think it's still a size 10. And see if we can just loosen it as is without having to take it all off and clean the carburetor as it sits. That'll make my life easier. It'll make your life easier. What do we got here? Oh, I got a 10 in here somewhere. Here's a 10. Let's see if I'm right about that, or if that's another size up. No, it's definitely a 10. Well, that's also okay, I guess. That just pops off there, huh? Once you loosen that. Interesting. All right. Well, that's kind of nifty, actually. Wonder if it's worthwhile to pull this off or not. Is that worthwhile to do? How's that connect there? Let's move that filter out of the way. It's pretty hard to mistake which way that goes, by the way. There's a little slot right there that this fits into. You can see the little groove work. Oh, it only goes one way, like that. Anyways. All right, well, I don't want to mess with all this springy stuff right here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. I'm just going to see if we can crack this loose as it sits. So let me push this guy back on there. We'll crack it loose from the bottom here while it's on there still, if I can. There we go. Tight first, then loose. That breaks it free. There we go. All right, I'm going to lean this back just a little bit. Oh, yeah. Boy, oh, boy. Come here, screw. There we go. Have a look inside here. And he said when he turns it on, it was leaking. So if I hold this up, this should cut off the gas. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and see what's going on with this thing. All right, it's on. This should keep the gas cut off. Don't see anything leaking. Now I'm going to open this. Okay, I see gas coming out as soon as I do that. All right, so turn that off again. He said it was coming out the air filter, huh? Everything seems to be working how it should. Nothing seems to be sticking. I don't know how much fuel's in here. I don't want to keep leaning this back too far. And that has a non-changeable jet inside of there, so you can't do anything with that jet. Well, I don't know why this would be leaking, to be honest with you. Let's see what happens here. I'll go ahead and pop this all back together. Because honestly, it should not be leaking. It doesn't, everything appears to be okay inside of there. So, shouldn't have leaking, and this should actually be pointed up front, not out the rear. However, I am going to angle it just slightly. Go ahead and retighten that. Okay. And let's tighten these back down. I realize there's no filter on there, but we just need this to make a seal. What happened to that other one I had there? Where'd you go, other nut? There you are. I just need this to make a quick seal against the side of the engine. So I'll just lightly tighten these down. That's my 10. Just so they make a bit of a seal. There we go. Doesn't need to be super tight. Just enough to hold the carburetor in place. Now he said it was leaking as is. So now that I've got it back together and I can see, I'm going to turn it on and see what it does. So it's on now. That would be choke closed. Choke open. Oh, why? That was out of frame that whole time, huh? Sorry about that. Well, I don't see it leaking now. Let's, I'm going to put this on the floor and see if we can start this thing up. Let's, let me pop it off here. I'll set it on the ground. We'll start it up and see if any fuel starts leaking out of it. I'm not quite sure I understand what he's saying here because I don't see any leaking happening. So let's go ahead and turn the choke on. Make sure this is on run. It is. Is that run? Yeah, okay. This is an interesting pull cord he's managed to procure on here. Let's see what happens here. Okay, I put everything back together now, so now we're going to test it. This should give you a really good idea of how much smoke is coming out of this thing. So the choke is off. I've got this set to on. Once again, we're cranking almost 8 amps through it, which is about the equivalent of a 5,000 watt BTU air conditioner. So let's crank it up. I want you to see how much smoke this thing's producing. I'm going to turn it back on, make sure the fuel's on. Going to let it seep down into the carb real quick. Should be ready to go. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, I waited till it started power surging before I turned it off. That means low on fuel. But I also don't want to run it out because, like I said, if you're not running fuel through it, then obviously there's no lubrication on the cylinder. So run it until it starts surging a little bit, then turn it off. So once you turn the fuel off, that's how that works. Anyways, she's definitely a smoker, which means it's got entirely too much oil in it. Not a good mixture, but other than that, it's functioning really, really well. They get the mixture down right, it'll be a good little generator. It's working good.